Snow drifted softly across the quiet cemetery, covering the world in a blanket of white that muffled even the sound of the wind. Daniel stood alone before a headstone carved with the name he had whispered 1,000 times into the darkness, Emma Carter. His wife. His best friend. His heartbreak. His breath formed small clouds in the freezing air as he knelt and gently brushed the snow off the stone, his fingers trembling with a grief that had only grown heavier with time. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," he murmured, his voice cracked and hoarse, the kind of voice that had screamed into pillows on nights he didn't want his daughter to hear him fall apart. He placed a bouquet of lilies, her favorite, the ones she always said made her feel like spring even in winter, onto the ground. Lily, their 6-year-old daughter, stood a few steps behind him. She wore a bright red coat, the one Emma had bought for her last birthday, the last gift she had given before she vanished from their lives. Lily's small hand gripped her stuffed teddy bear, and she sniffled quietly, unsure whether she was allowed to cry or supposed to be strong like her dad tried to be. Daniel wiped his tears with the back of his hand, but they kept flowing, pushed forward by memories that stabbed him with cruel clarity. He saw Emma laughing, dancing barefoot in the kitchen, chasing Lily around the living room, leaning against him while reading a book. And then he saw the wreckage, the burning metal twisted beyond recognition, the police shaking their heads, the reporters crowding him, the doctor's somber voice telling him there was no confirmed remains but the evidence strongly supports. He had walked out before the doctor could finish. Evidence. Evidence wasn't Emma. Evidence wasn't the woman whose warmth could melt any cold moment. But a year had passed, and no trace of her had ever been found. The world moved on. But Daniel couldn't. Today marked exactly 1 year since the day she disappeared, and the court had finally declared her legally dead. He had signed the papers with hands that didn't feel like his own. He still couldn't believe he had been forced to bury an empty grave, forced to put a date on the end of a story he didn't want to finish. Daniel lowered his head. "I should have protected you. I should have known something was wrong that night. I should have been there." His voice broke completely, and he pressed his forehead against the icy stone, letting the coldness seep into his skin as if punishing himself for failing her. "Dad?" Lily whispered softly. Daniel wiped his face again and turned, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, sweetheart? Can we go home? My fingers are cold." He walked to her, knelt, and gently pulled her into his arms. "Of course, baby. We're going now." She wrapped her arms around him, resting her cheek on his shoulder. What he didn't see, what he couldn't see, was the figure hiding behind the giant oak tree just beyond the fence of the cemetery. A woman. Breath shaking. Shoulders trembling beneath a black hooded coat. Emma. Alive. Watching the man she loved kneel before a grave that carried her name. She felt a sob tear up her throat, and she clapped a hand over her mouth to silence it. Her heart felt like it was tearing into pieces. She had expected pain, guilt, regret. But she had never imagined this kind of devastation, seeing Daniel on his knees, crying because he believed she was gone forever. She had watched him from afar many times in the past year, always hidden, always afraid to be seen. She had left not because she wanted to but because she had no choice. The night she died, she had discovered information at her job, a powerful corporation involved in something far darker than anyone suspected. She had taken evidence home, thinking she could expose them. Instead, they had found out. Someone had broken into their home while she was alone. She had been attacked, chased, hunted. The accident had been staged. Her car had been rammed off the road on purpose. She had barely escaped with her life by rolling down a ravine and disappearing before the men chasing her returned to check the wreck. She had been declared dead because no one could imagine she had survived. And for a year she stayed hidden under a false identity, working with an underground investigative group to bring down the people after her. But she had never stopped watching Daniel and Lily. She saw their birthdays from afar, saw Daniel take Lily to school, saw him working double shifts, saw him sit on their porch late at night staring at the empty place where she used to sit beside him. She saw his loneliness, his pain, his struggle, but she had believed it was the price to pay to keep him and Lily alive. Until today. Seeing Daniel break at her grave shattered the last piece of resolve she had left. She took a small, trembling step out from behind the tree but froze when Lily turned her head. Emma pulled back instantly, pressing herself against the trunk, heart pounding. She wanted nothing more than to run to them, hold them, tell them everything. But she also feared dragging danger back into their lives. She waited until Daniel lifted Lily, carried her to the car, and drove away. Only then did Emma walk to the grave, her knees giving out as she touched her own headstone. "I'm here," she whispered through tears. "I never left you. I never stopped loving you." She stayed until her hands went numb from the cold, trying to gather the courage to do what her heart begged her to do. Go to them. Tell them she was alive. Reclaim the life stolen from her. But the sun dipped behind the clouds, and she knew she couldn't decide here. Not yet. Because once she stepped back into their lives, she could never disappear again. And if danger returned, her family would be the ones to pay the price. Part 2. Emma followed the car from a distance, staying far enough back that Daniel wouldn't notice. When he pulled onto the old bridge on the outskirts of town, she knew exactly why. It had been her favorite place, a quiet, open view of the river, where they used to sit for hours on summer nights talking about their dreams, their future, the family they wanted to build. The place where Daniel had first told her he loved her. He stepped out of the car slowly, breathing hard as if the grief at the cemetery hadn't been enough and now memories were dragging him back into another tide he wasn't ready for. Lily stayed in the car, humming quietly to her teddy bear, unaware of the storm inside her father's chest. Emma stood halfway down the path, frozen. She watched Daniel grip the bridge railing, his shoulders shaking as he stared down at the dark river below. She heard him whisper her name, softly, brokenly, "Emma. I wish you were here. I don't know how to do this without you." Emma could no longer stay silent. Daniel, his entire world stopped. He spun around. The wind blew her hood back, revealing the face he had dreamed of every day for a year, the face he had cried over moments earlier at a grave. Daniel stumbled backward as if struck. His breath left him in a violent gasp. His lips parted, but no words came. Emma? Her name left his mouth like a prayer, fearful, hopeful, disbelieving. Emma nodded, tears running freely. "I'm alive." Daniel looked as if his legs were about to collapse. He gripped the railing again, blinking hard, trying to understand what he was seeing. No, this isn't possible. I buried you. I know, she whispered, stepping closer. "I know what you went through. And I'm so sorry." Lily's head popped up from behind the car door. She stared, stunned, her teddy bear slipping from her hands. "Mom." Her small voice cracked. Emma dropped to her knees and opened her arms. "My baby." Lily ran to her and crashed into her, sobbing uncontrollably as Emma held her, kissing her hair, breathing in the scent she had missed for an entire year. Daniel watched them with an expression that held everything at once, rage and love, confusion and relief, betrayal and gratitude. After what felt like forever, Lily clung to Daniel's leg, still crying, while Daniel finally found his voice. "Why?" His tone wasn't angry. It was wounded. Tired. "Why did you let us think you were dead?" Emma swallowed hard. "Because I thought it was the only way to keep you both safe." She told him everything, the break-in, the threats, the men who tried to kill her, the staged accident, the information she had uncovered, the people she was working with now to bring the criminals down. Daniel's face changed with every sentence, pain to shock to disbelief to fear to slowly dawning understanding. "You should have trusted me," he finally whispered. "We could have faced it together." "I know," she breathed, tears spilling again. "I was wrong. I was terrified. And I missed you so much I thought I would break." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. The wind rustled between them, carrying away everything left unsaid. And then, slowly,